Welcome to our weekly program, The Inside Story of Chabad in America through the Mindel Archives. I think it was this note Rabbi Mindel wrote. It was around a Kinus HaShluchim. I don't know, it doesn't say a date, I don't know which Kinus HaShluchim, that he had a meeting with Rabbi Yaakov. And I want to share the conversation that Rabbi Mindel had with Rabbi Yaakov. And Rabbi Mindel, as you know, used to write down everything. So this is from his notes. They were both, Rabbi Mindel and Rabbi Yaakov, they were both Merkas Linyoni Chinuch. And they had equal authority. Rabbi Yaakov was the Menayel, and Rabbi Mindel was the Maskir Roshi. As it says in the back of the Siddur, the Tilas Hashem Siddur, there's a page, it says the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Nossi, and Menayel, and Maskir Roshi. So Rabbi Yaakov was the administrator of Merkas Linyoni Chinuch. Also, Rabbi Yaakov was the head of the Shluchim. That was his task. And Rabbi Mindel had a different task. He worked with the Rebbe, translating the Tanya in English. He wrote the Shmuz, the Talks and Tales, and he was busy in writing books, Shulchan Aruch, the Code of Laws, the Memoirs, and My Prayer, the Philosophy of Chabad. And also he took dictation from the Rebbe. All the letters, all the English letters is the Rabbi Mindel's Lashon. Most of the Eaker's Kodesh, not all, were Rabbi Mindel. And also all Michtavim Klolim were Rabbi Mindel's Lashon. So he used to have dictation. So this was his task. And so he had a different, he had a task, and Rabbi Yaakov had a task. So everyone has close friends. Now, Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Mindel, they both more or less are from the same upbringing. They're both discreet, they're both Baal Seid. They both came on the same boat with the Frierdiker Rebbe. They went to the same school, more or less. So if Rabbi Yaakov needed to speak something over, I think Rabbi Mindel was the person. Rabbi Yaakov was much older than Rabbi Mindel. Rabbi Mindel had a lot of credits for him. So he from time to time they used to discuss certain things. So this is a note that Rabbi Mindel wrote the discussion. Rabbi Yaakov said in the meeting, "You remember us four, the Frierdiker Rebbe, the Rebbe, you and me, we were sitting, we came to America to make a name, Merkas Linyoni Chinuch. Coming to America, Chinuch. Everything, the goal is education. To bring Mashiach, Zokter. Shluchim, what are Shluchim? Educators. They are Baal Mechanchim. He called them Baal Mechanchim. He said, and that is the Eaker. That's the primary. So, and whenever the Rebbe speaks by Farbringen, he says, whatever the Rebbe, Mifzoim, or learning Torah, learning grammar, whatever the Rebbe says, he speaks to everybody. We're all shluchim of the Rebbe. Everybody's a shliach. Whoever does the Rebbe's work is called a shliach. The Rebbe doesn't just speak to shluchim. He speaks to everybody. So he says here, he writes here, whether you live in Brooklyn, New York, and you are a first grade teacher, or you live in Africa, he writes, Africa, why Africa? I don't know, Africa. And you're a 5th grade teacher, or somewhere in Arizona, you're an 8th grade teacher, or you have a misifta, or you are in Yeshiva G'dayla, or you do miftzoyim, or shav mitzvahs, whatever it is, you are called a shliach. Now, so what's the mile? I mean, of the shluchim? I mean, still there's the shluchim all around. He says the difference is that if a shliach is married and he has children and he picks himself off with the family, he writes, and he goes in a place where a midbar shmoma, he called it, and with nochosh, sorov, yakrov, snakes and scorpions, and there's nothing there. And it comes from New York, that shliach is a Mesiras Nefesh shliach. But otherwise, everyone is called a shliach. Now, by the way, Rabbi Chadikov did not mention this here, but I want to tell you, the Rebbe didn't send shluchim. He did. I'm sorry, he did, but maybe a handful, maybe 20 people. The Frierdiker Rebbe picked Rabbi Yomi Garadetsky, all of Hasholim, Rav Reitchik, I think all of Hasholim, Nisim Pinson in Morocco, Rav Matisov. The Rebbe picked, I think, Rabbi Gershon Mendel Garelik or Rabbi Leibel Raskin, maybe more. But most of the shluchim, the Rebbe didn't pick them. That didn't work like that. They wrote into the Rebbe, they want to go in this place, so or the Rebbe was maskim, or the Rebbe was not maskim, the Rebbe didn't agreed, or the Rebbe answered Askar al-Tzin, or whatever the Rebbe answered. So they're called shluchim. But the Rebbe did not actually pick. Usually a shliach, you call somebody, say, here, take this and give, and go there and there. It didn't happen that way. Now, so a shliach, we're all shluchim, and we're all ba'mechanchim. Now, over here, there's a letter here that's, here. Somebody wrote to Rabbi Chadikov, a shliach, that we are in a higher category. We're in a higher level. Now, Rabbi Chadikov did not like that. Shluchim are not in a higher level. Shluchim are doing the Rebbe's work. But nobody is in a higher level. We are all doing the Rebbe's work. The kinus ashluchim is because Rabbi Chadikov said here that they come together once a year. They should come together. This is a chizuk for everybody from all over the world as Ahavas Yisrael. So they come together. But everybody is called shluchim. This is what the note says. This is what he told him. Now, and then he said, shluchim must know two things. Number one, shliach shal odom kamoisai. A shliach is like the mishaleach. And a shliach, he says, Rabbi Chadikov, is not a shliach. He's 24 hours. He sleeps shlichus, he says. He eats shlichus. He walks shlichus. He teaches everything that he does. So he has to always think that he is sent by the Rebbe. And if he failed, and if he doesn't, then he failed the shlichus. That's Rabbi very strict. That a shliach has to know, that's number one, that he's a shliach 24 hours. Always has to know this. Another thing he said here, that a shliach has to know what is a Toefl and what is an Eaker. What is primary and what is secondary. They're both important. The primary is important and the secondary. The Toefl, they're both, but he has to know what's an Eaker and what's a Toefl. And he gave an example here. The example that he gave is like this. First of all, he says, when people go to, and he mentioned Washington, because maybe this was also around the time that they had to go to Washington, I'm not sure. Public relation is important. You have to have public relation. But if you put the whole mind in that, and this is what 90% of the time, that's only a Toefl. The purpose of public relation is because you have to speak about release time and they should accomplish something. But that's the Eaker. But the public relation itself is a Toefl. Then he says a wagon. I don't know, you called it a wagon. It's really a car. A shliach needs a car, Zokter. Is a car the Eaker? The car is to travel to do a mitzvah or to learn Torah with people. But the car itself is nothing. A Chabad house, and every home is a Beis Chabad, the Rebbe said. He said. A Chabad house. Chabad house is a Toefl. What's the Eaker? The Eaker is what's in the Chabad house. People put their minds always in buildings, where you have one building, 2 buildings, 20 buildings. Some people have 1 building. Is that the Eaker? Or the Eaker is what you do in the building, what you learn in the building. This is what, so a shliach has to know, this was the discussion then, what's an Eaker and what's a Toefl. And the kinus hashluchim, he says, that's a time for shluchim to make a cheshbon hanefesh, Rabbi Chadikov said. Just like Elul, once a year, a businessman, as the Rebbe said, makes a cheshbon hanefesh. Did he make a good business this year. If he didn't, how will he be next year? The same thing also by Kilus HaShluchim is a time to make a Cheshbon HaNefesh. How many people did I put on film this year? And if I didn't do enough, I'll do next year again. How many people did I put a mezuzah? How many people were limud haTorah, sitting and learning, having shiurim? How many people did I make the home kosher? These are what he mentioned. And how many children did I send to yeshivas? This is the Eaker, and the other things are Toefl. This is what a shliach has to know, and this is the purpose of the Kinus HaShluchim. Now, I want to mention something, which he did not say that, but I heard from a reliable source, Avot. We say every morning, Matoivu oyalecha Yaakov mishkenesacha Yisrael. How good is your tent, Yaakov, and your dwelling place, Yisrael? Yaakov and Yisrael is one person. Yaakov Avinu is called Yaakov, sometimes Yisrael. Every Yid, it has to have in them a Yaakov and a Yisrael. What's Yaakov? Yaakov is the heel, Eaker. That's the lower part. That's the gashmis of a person. That's the Toefl that a person needs. Yisrael is liroich. That's the ruchnius. That's why oyhalecha, a tent, is temporary. You live in a tent a day, a month, a year, but that's not a home. So a person should know that he needs the Toefl, he needs a home, he needs a car, he has to make parnosa, he has to have, a Yid has to have it, and he has to have it. But that's oyhalecha, that's only temporary. Mishkenoisecha, the Eaker, the learning Torah, the doing Mivtzoyim, the doing what you're supposed to, that's Mishkenoisecha Yisrael. That's a Mishkan. That's a dwelling place. That is the Eaker. So what I want to say is that the Rabbi is helpful that we, the Shluchim, we're all Shluchim, we should make a dir Allah Yisbari b'tachtenim here in this world. It should be Mishkenoisecha Yisrael, and the Rabbi should help us all. We should build, as should come Bias Mashiach, and we should build the third Beis Hamikdash b'mheira v'yameinu. Amen. Thank you.